Everybody, welcome to today's show. Look at me. I'm on time. It's amazing. I'm on time today. This is amazing. We have our special guest with us. Catherine Austin Fitts is back to the show. She's an American investment banker who served as managing director of Dillon Read and Company and as United States Assistant Secretary of Housing and Urban Development for Housing in George W. Herbert Walker Bush's administration. She's also co-authored a report in 2017 alleging $21 trillion in unauthorized spending by the United States Department of Defense and U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development over a 17-year period. Welcome back to the show, Catherine Austin Fitts. Good to see you.
Jimmy, it's good to see you.
So now, we were just talking briefly before we started about how I'm feeling anxious about the war, and you said that an infection has to bubble up to the surface. Is that how you described it?
Yeah, so I think we have a problem, and our problem is a secret governance system, and that secret governance system is centralizing control into a control grid that will end the democratic republic way of government that we in the United States have enjoyed, will shred the Constitution, and they continue to do things that consolidate power, and war is one of them. And I think that problem is gonna keep getting worse and worse and worse until they fail or we change it.
So the problem, you mean, of secret governance control over us, that problem?
Well, it's both a secret governance system. So let me go back. The fundamental bureaucracy or the key bureaucracy to that control system is the central banking system. And the model we've used in the West is called the central banking warfare system. So the central banks print money and the military makes sure they take it. And every 80 to 120 years, that system does a reset, which is a monumental change. It's a complete and in fact, it's a change in which plague laws traditionally have been part of what they do to centralize control of labor and capital and, do their reset. Oftentimes you switch the reserve currency when that happens, and we are in the middle of a reset. And it's a gut-wrenching one because you're talking about unbelievably fundamental changes to the central bank warfare model. They're looking to use digital technology to go to a whole new model that sort of ends currency and goes to a technocratic control grid. That's a once every 500 years event. That's huge. So if you're feeling like you're being rocked and rolled, that's why. It's the reinvention of everything.
So you're saying this reset, when was the last reset?
It was basically the Spanish flu and after World War I. They did a reset. And essentially, if you go back, the reserve currency was the sterling. And then the US created the Federal Reserve that gave them the ability to then do between World War I and World War II a duopoly between sterling and the dollar. And then World War II, it went all to the dollar. And so the last reset basically moved from sterling to the duopoly with the dollar and sterling after World War One.
Oh, okay. And that was but the creation of the Fed was before World War One, right? Correct?
Right. Before you can have reserve or currency responsibility, whether it's as sharing it with the sterling or sharing it with or being your own reserve currency, you need certain infrastructure to manage those positions and interaction with other parties around the world. And that was one of the reasons they wanted to put the Fed in operation. But at the same time they brought in the Fed, they did all sorts of things to back up that system, including creating the IRS and implementing all sorts of federal taxation. And I would say they also brought in the drugs and significantly increased drug trafficking in the United States to build the enforcement mechanisms that they also needed. So that, there was a series of different things that happened at the same time they did the Fed, which reorganizes institutions to help to continue to centralize control of power.
And so right now there's a reset happening that is as big as that?
I would say bigger. And
Really?
I would, yeah, because moving the reserve currency from the sterling to a duopoly between the U.S. and sterling, that's a change within the model. Digital technology is fundamentally changing how the financial transactions are done and ends currency. In other words, we went from one reserve currency to two kinds of reserve currencies and then to a third, US dollar standalone, but all of those were currencies. Now what they're trying to do is implement a control grid where you get rid of currencies and you just have, the combination of programmable money with rule systems that give total central control. So the head of the Bank of International Settlements, which is the central bank of central bank, said in 2020, the beauty of the system is we can set the rules centrally and we have the technology to enforce them. Now, he said it with respect to central bank digital currencies, but if you look at the legislation that the US has passed and is passing, they are passing legislation to allow them to do CBDCs privately through stablecoins and digital assets and implement the same control systems. And so, there's been states and now the Congress is moving to outlaw central bank digital currencies. But if you look at what they're proposing to do, they're just saying instead of the central bank issuing programmable money that will be used to control you, we will have the banks that own the central bank issue, quote unquote, private money that has the same rule system that can control you. And I'm talking to you today from Tennessee. I've been in the States for the last couple of weeks trying to get legislation passed at the state level that stops programmable money from being able to control you. So what we're saying is, great, you want to do crypto with all sorts of programs and conditions and terms and conditions. That's great, but you can't force somebody to transact that way. You have to give them an alternative, and you can't use programmable money to strip them of their basic constitutional rights.
So tell people exactly what you mean by programmable money.
Okay. So programmable money, let's go back to the COVID lockdowns. Programmable money is money where if I say you're locked down and you can't go a mile from your house or you've got to be in a 15-minute city, your money won't work further than that. They've got you under surveillance, and they can have a software and AI that can track what you're doing and where you're doing, and then influence or control where you can transact. So let's say under your health plan, I don't think you should eat any pizza that's not made with, other than pizza made with insect-based flour, or you should only have lab-grown meat. Your money won't work to buy real meat. It's only eligible to buy what we say, right?
And of course,
So
you mean using a credit card or or did something like that. You don't mean cash.
no, and one of the bills we were just testifying on this week was to protect cash and keep cash alive because one of the most important things that everyone can do is to use cash, promote cash, do business with businesses that will take cash, because this only works if we can go to a 100% digital system. If they are able to kill cash, I assure you they will have, we will go from a world where we live in a constitutional republic to a world of complete slavery. It's that extreme. They will control your spatial movements. They will control where you can go, what you can do, who you can buy from. The way they can force you to shop at the company store is your money will only work at the company store. You're talking about creating rule systems top down, and those rule systems could be different for you and me. So let's say, for example, because Epstein's on everybody's mind. Let's say you've got 3 kids and I want to be able to use one for parties at Epstein's Island. Well, I come to you and say, Mr. Dorr, pick a child. I need a child. You have 3 kids. If you want money to feed your 2 kids, you got to give me 1 kid. Or you got to transgender 1 kid. Or you've got to have a vaccine mandate. If you don't, I turn off your money or I cut your money. So let me give you an example, because this has been growing kind of regularly all along. When I first moved to Tennessee, I was working with a reporter in Washington, helping her understand how the companies that were drugging kids with Ritalin and other drugs like Ritalin, sort of how that system worked and how the economics work and what it meant to the stocks that were trading in the stock market. And I got to Tennessee and I had a neighbor who had just retired early from being a teacher. And I said, "Why did you retire?" And she said, "I couldn't take it anymore. The parents were constantly lobbying me to certify that their kids were ADHD when they weren't." And I said, "Why were they doing that?" And she said, "Because if they certified them as ADHD and put them on Ritalin, then they could get Social Security disability for the kids. And that's how they get the money to feed them. So to feed all their kids, they had to certify that they were ADHD and put them on drugs so they could afford to feed them." So there was an enormous incentive system in the school system and in the parents to drug kids unnecessarily.
Wow, okay, and I mean, half the population's on some kind of psychotropic medicine. Am I wrong about that right now?
I thought it was about a third.
Oh, okay.
What I will say, because I do so much traveling in America by car, there is a tremendous deterioration in cognition in America. And it could be many things. It could be drugs, it could be alcohol, it could be, pharmaceuticals, it could be just the stress
What
and
do you
inflation. Inflation is very stressful.
so well, tell me what so you say there's been a decline in cognition. What do you mean by cognition? Is how does it manifest?
Manifests in terms of the number of traffic accidents and fatalities, but also in just driving behavior on the road, or, behavior when you're going to get gas, or in the in the truck stop, or, in the place you might go to buy food. Y- y-
And you don't think that's caused by cell phones? Hi, we had a power outage. My apologies. I hope oh, false flag. That's what we had here. But and I forgot where we left off, but I'm sure it was about central currency and the central banking. But I want to just jump really quickly. And Catherine, you were saying while we were waiting to get rebooted that Polymarket says it's a 50% chance that the Democrats.
I just saw a new tweet saying Polymarket's now saying the last time I looked, it was 89% the Democrats take the House, but now they're saying apparently they get both houses.
So the House and the Senate. And so
Yeah.
I know someone like me says, oh, well, it's just a different, same boss as the old boss, but different face. What do you say?
In terms of implementing the control grid, yes. You're gonna have it's a uniparty, and they're gonna keep so I'll say it this way, the Epstein syndicate or the Rothschild syndicate, any way you wanna say it, is gonna keep implementing the control grid. The uniparty works they both work for the same iron bank, if you will. So if you've seen Game of Thrones, you know who so they both work for the same iron bank. What you will do, though, is you will get impeachment hearings in the House that will bring forward enormous amounts of money, information about grift on the Republican side, particularly the Trump family. And that will happen when Americans are going to be really struggling financially from inflation and what's happening in the economy. And then you go to the Senate, and you're going to need to get a two-thirds vote. But if you look at how many Republicans are up at 28, if the grift is as effective as I think it will be in sort of upsetting everybody, then you're going to be able to impeach. So the chances of a impeachment are very high if the Democrats can get the Senate.
And you're saying because it seems to me that almost all of Washington is in on some kind of a grift. Nancy Pelosi famously way outperformed the market. Joe Biden had all those millions of dollars from Ukraine and China, and so now Donald Trump is just doing his version of a grift. So
Right. And
would this be but you're saying this is even greater? His grift is even worse than everybody else?
so so here's what's interesting. Many of the times you get no movement on grift because everybody's in on it.
Right.
You know, so one party doesn't want to shoot at another party over grift because those bullets will come around and hit them.
Right.
What's interesting about some of the things that Trump has done and Musk has done is that's grift that won't come around and hit the Democrats. There's a fair amount of grift, from what I can tell, that the bullet won't come flying around and hit the other side of the uniparty. And that gives them an unprecedented opportunity to have fun with the impeachment. Now, the danger, and this is true, is once you start getting going on grift, then the other guys can get going on your grift. And, then it gets out of hand because everybody, with rare exception, is deeply in it.
So
So,
so what is the grift that they're not? So I used to make a joke that when it look, you know why it took so long to impeach Donald Trump the first time was because they had to find a crime he committed that they weren't complicit in. And that's exactly what it was. So when
right,
they were all gung ho on sending armament to Ukraine, and he's paused it, and so they were not involved in that, so they could go get him on that.
right.
What is his grift now that they're not involved in?
So I think a lot of the grift on the crypto side
You
was is not. I think you can probably target that and have it not come back on the Democratic side.
is that the Trump stablecoin thing? Is that what you're talking about?
There's multiple things in the crypto space, but what you had in the 24 election is you had the crypto industry pour money into the parties and the political process, and then the payback was extraordinary. And what has been and what was being proposed is certifiably the most financially irresponsible stuff I've ever seen in government. So so I think there's a lot of opportunity there. Now, that's a long way away because the question is, if you look at what Trump is trying to do by asserting federal control of the elections, he's basically trying to control or destroy the elections, is what it looks like. So the question is, what will happen as the federal government tries to assert control? of the election process.
Uh,
I don't know.
hasn't the surprisingly hasn't the Supreme Court ruled they've ruled against Trump in lots of big cases, his tariff case for sure, and his deportations. So do you think that the Supreme Court will be a check on Donald Trump's trying to take over the election? Because the elections are the states run the elections right now, and he's trying.
Right. The states run the elections, but he's trying to consolidate control. And I personally know of states where, you know, the person who's responsible for managing the databases and the data is being threatened to turn it over to the feds without any legal authority to do it. I mean, there's privacy concerns and other concerns. So, and from what I can tell, the feds are being very heavy-handed. The danger is that Trump says, "Oh, we need martial law because the country is filled with Iranian saboteurs, and we need martial law, or we need the National Guard, or you're
Oh,
going to get, yeah, you're going to get, we need to drop troops in the street." So, for example, we have a weekly show at the Slurry Report called Money and Markets, and we've been very negative about what is happening with ICE from the beginning. Because the theory was you create a special private army and you send them in to get the hardened criminals, and it sounds wonderful. Who wouldn't love to get hardened criminals thrown out of the country? But in fact, that is not what has been happening, and the courts have been extremely hard on Trump and ICE. But for example, Trump dropped the National Guard into DC on the theory that would stop crime. Okay. What has been, in my experience, because I have a lot of experience in low income neighborhoods in DC, I built a business in one of them. I know a lot about the drug trafficking. What is the number one cause of crime in DC? The number one cause of crime, in my experience, is the US intelligence agencies bringing in drugs and then sending people to enforce against the drugs, right? Right, so the drug gangs, it's like, if the US government wants to stop crime in DC, they don't need to, drop in military to stop it. They need to stop bringing in the drugs,
and
right?
yeah, okay. So
Right.
you would is that a CIA FBI joint operation?
So I can only tell you about the periods that I researched the Iran-Contra and the Dark Alliance allegations, and I have an online book. In fact, it's called Dylan Reed and the Aristocracy of Stock Profits, and it's about the push to build, using federal money, private prisons, and it's about why that model is so hopelessly and incredibly corrupt. But I get deeply into the fact that Wall Street and Washington are deeply dependent on illegal money and cash flows. So, during the Rand Contra hearing, I was working with a reporter from Insight Magazine, which at the time was the Washington Times Magazine, and a spokesperson for the Department of Justice said the U.S. economy launders 500 billion to $1 trillion a year of illegal money. So that's narcotics trafficking, it's sex trafficking, it's illegal gambling, it's everything. And so 500 billion to $1 trillion a year is a huge amount of money, for which, if you look at what it takes to finance a deficit spending by the government, or what it takes to keep the stock market up, or what it takes to run the economy, our banks are the global leaders in money laundering, and that's a huge business for us. Now, that business is not run by African American teenagers in Anacostia, right?
Okay. So, let me just run this past you real fast and get your take on it, because Donald Trump said he was going to end the deficit. Here, I just
How
want to.
critical is an issue is the national debt, and how specifically would you try to bring that down if you're reelected?
Well, the way you bring it down is through really great growth. Also, you bring it down with tariffs, because these countries are making all of our product. When you have a 100% tariff on a nation, better than the money is the fact that they're not going to want to pay it very long, and they're going to build a plant here. If they build a plant here, there is no tariff. So we're going to do it through growth. We're going to have very rapid growth, and we're going to do it. We're going to do it quickly and effectively, and it's going to make a lot of money. And we're going to start paying down our debt. We have to pay. We have to start paying down our debt.
Well, here's from Fortune magazine. It says the U.S. borrowed $50 billion a week for the past 5 months. So the U.S. Treasury's borrowing showed no sign of slowing as the U.S. headed deeper into fiscal year 26, with the CBO reporting that another trillion was added to the federal deficit in the first 5 months. The monthly budget from the CBO, updated to February 2026 and released yesterday, showed that the government is estimated to have borrowed $308 billion last month alone. Of course, with more borrowing comes higher interest costs of the debt. Between October 25, when the 26th fiscal year started, and February, the Treasury spent an additional $31 billion on net interest on public debt compared to the prior year. As a result, in just 5 months, the Treasury forked out a total of $433 billion to service public debt, which is now nearing $38.9 trillion. And the CBO says that the outlays for interest increased because the debt was larger than it was in the first 5 months of fiscal year 2025, and because of higher long-term interest rates. Declines in short-term interest rates partially mitigated the overall rise in interest payments. So despite the eye-watering sums, the deficit was actually an improvement on last year's borrowing for the same period. The government needed to borrow an additional $142 billion compared to this year's figure. So just tell me what all this means, and what do you think the effect is, or how does this relate to the Iran war?
Okay, so we receive enormous subsidy from all around the world because we're the reserve currency. Okay, so when people say, our way of life is supported by that, literally, you'll see estimates of people saying if we lost the reserve currency status, the value of the US dollar against global currencies around the world would drop by as much as 50 to 90%. One of the reasons you're feeling inflation is because the value of the dollar and all fiat currencies is going down. So we've been losing, or we've been de-dollarizing. So we still are the reserve currency, and we still have an enormous market share of global reserves, as well as, being the dominant currency used for trade. And there's no currency in the world that comes close to our market share. So if somebody said, I want to leave the dollar tomorrow, part of the problem is they don't have a place to go. And people in the markets will say the dollar is both dangerous and dominant. Okay. However, that position of reserve currency depends enormously on maintaining a global military presence that is effective. If you lose that, so for example, if the Straits of Hormuz close and you can't open them, and you make it clear to the world that you don't control the sea lanes, then all bets are off and things are going to change. So we have seen a steady de-dollarization of other countries not wanting to buy treasuries and now getting out of treasuries. Now, the US response has been to propose to do global stablecoins. Now that institutions won't buy our paper, we're hoping to get retail people all around the world out of their local currency and into treasury through stablecoins, because the stablecoins that we have now created a regulatory framework where the Genius Act are essentially like trading a little treasury bill. You buy $1 stablecoin, the dollar goes into treasuries, and you end up trading treasuries. Okay, so what the Iran war means right now is we have signaled to many allies around the world and many institutions around the world, you can't trust the US and you can't trust the US dollar. And that, if anything, should accelerate de-dollarization. Now, because of the crisis and the ramifications to energy and food markets, you're seeing the dollar strengthen because a lot of people are getting out of stocks, they're getting out of risk assets and going into dollars. So the dollar is holding its own. But the US has signaled both on its management. Trump came in promising to lower spending. He hasn't lowered it, he's increased it. So the deficit is worse. And the other things you could do to lower the deficit, like improving the productivity and efficiency of how money is spent is not gotten better, it's gotten worse. So the re-engineering of government internally, whether it's cutting the deficit or improving performance, has gone the wrong way. And now you're embroiled in foreign wars and proving to allies around the world that you can't protect the sea lanes. So it's a very bad message, and it's likely to increase de-dollarization. What does that mean to the average person? It means inflation. The value of the dollar is less, and what Trump has been trying to do is slap on tariffs in the hope that that could offset. One, it could stop us from buying from abroad because we're making less and less for ourselves, but the other is it could help the deficit. Now, grossly oversimplified, we have $6 trillion a year of expenses, $4 trillion a year of revenues, and $2 trillion that we're borrowing. And as the interest goes up, the debt skyrockets. So you're in a downward spiral, and there are many ways out of that downward spiral. But let's talk about the political refusal to get out of that downward spiral. So I'll give you an example. What is one of the greatest things we would have to do to increase productivity in the general economy?
More jobs, I guess. I don't know.
We would have to stop poisoning our people,
Oh.
including our children.
Well, that's not happening.
Okay. So HHS has an extraordinarily huge, I think it's almost $2 trillion budget. And the reason it's so big is because Americans have been systematically poisoned for the last 2 decades. You have food that's poisoning, you have spray that's poisoning, you have all sorts of pharmaceuticals that's poisoning. It's a population that is, it's not sick, it's poisoned. And it's very expensive. You're talking about a very expensive healthcare system. And one of the things that's happened is the private equity has rolled up a lot of the healthcare system purposely to run it in a way that it extracts money. So if you wanted to balance the federal budget, you've got to stop poisoning people. And we have seen from what's happened with the arguments about, whether it's food or pharmaceuticals in Washington over the last year, Congress is absolutely committed, and the administration, to poisoning people. So we just saw a poll, I think 56% of Americans now believe that the COVID shots, are part of a mass atrocity. And yet the panel that was going to push to stop recommending the COVID shots just canceled their effort. So we continue to poison people with the COVID shots.
And it's also revealed in Trump's recent executive order giving a liability shield to the makers of glyphosate, which is sprayed on all our food.
So
go ahead.
We had a fabulous toxicologist who's worked with groups, health freedom groups we've worked through. She's helped in numerous states stopping that legislation, but it keeps coming back around and keeps coming back around because the money behind it is incredible. And I was interviewing her, Jimmy, and she was talking about not just what it does to poison people, but what the impact is on fertility. And this is a scientist who's very detailed and specific and clear. And, she's not, this is not a person who ever tries to be entertaining. She tries to be very factual. We get to the end of the interview and she said, you have to understand that the impact on fertility is such that if this shield goes into effect, I consider it an extinction level event.
So it certainly is going to be challenged in the court. I'm urging RFK to resign from HHS so he could go back and file a suit against the government and to protect the people's right to sue when they get cancer from glyphosate. He's not doing that. So what's the reluctance for them to stop poisoning us? Is it just profit?
No, I think this is intentional depopulation.
Really?
Absolutely. So in 1998, I started to try and warn people about the money disappearing from the federal government. And what I said in 90, I kept saying it again and again for many, many years. And that is, if you don't fund the retirement systems, the only way you can balance the budget is by either delaying the retirement age or lowering life expectancy or both. And I remember Dr. Skidmore was the professor from Michigan State University who did the survey with his students of the missing money. And he was the one who was able to document 21 trillion had gone missing by fiscal 2015. And we did a lot to try and bring transparency to that. And the government's response was to pass something called FASB 56 that basically said you can keep secret books. And we have a wealth of information at Solari if you want to learn more about FASB 56. And Dr. Skipper, I'll never forget this. I keep telling this story. I was sitting running errands in Bolivar, Tennessee, and I'm sitting in my car and I'm talking to him. And he says, well, why don't you give up talking about this? And I said, don't you understand? So this is in the end of 2018. And I said, don't you understand, if we don't bring transparency to this, they're going to lower life expectancy. They've started to. So if you look at life expectancy from the beginning of the financial coup on, it started to decline. It was mostly in the lower income groups. And then in COVID, it accelerated. And I said, they're going to have to keep lowering life expectancy if we don't deal with this. And so when the pandemic started, the first thing I said to all of our subscribers is, it's an op. Don't worry about the op, just don't take the shot. And the reason I could say that and know it was true was I knew exactly what the numbers were. And, if you look at the 21 trillion missing, 20 trillion was missing from DOD. So it's not surprising that DOD would want to authorize and run Operation Warp Speed.
as a way to decrease the population.
So there are two theories. One is the way to decrease the population, which I think is one of them. If you look at what's going on in the war, I think the goal here is, again, to decrease the population. And we need to talk about what's happening with food, because I think, we're focused on energy. We need to talk about food. But the other for DOD is the question is, why did they keep trying with food, with spray, and with the injections to get nanoparticles into our bodies that make us more susceptible to interaction with invisible technology? So what does this have to do with the Internet of Bodies, and what are they trying to get in our bodies? Because clearly they're trying to get, these nanoparticles into our body, and they're very serious about the Internet of Bodies.
And can you tell me what that means?
So we have a wealth of information at the Solari Report where we interview scientists who are expert at it. And so, Jimmy, I'm an investment banker. I can't describe it, but it. So here's what the various scientists we've interviewed say. So Michael Nels from Germany, or we just did Dr. Christian on neurowarfare. What they're saying is we're putting materials into the body that make it easier to control people and use technology to control them. And whether it's lowering cognition or making us more susceptible to interaction with telecommunications.
So that's one of the aims of getting us to ingest all these nanoparticles?
That's the question. So, they've been very clear that they want to be able to get to the point where our bodies interact directly with AI without having to carry a smartphone or look at you through a laptop. So the head of Nokia, the European telephone company said, what was it? It was the World Economic Forum. At some point you won't need to carry a smartphone. It'll be in your body.
So do you have to go? I think we're over time with you. Do you have to leave?
No, I got 10 more minutes.
Oh, okay. That's fantastic. Okay. I wanted to, there's so much that I want to talk to you about. Like, you talk about the control grid and flock cameras. I was in my car last night and I was looking up, and every street light had these cameras.
Right.
And I was in Pasadena, California for a dental appointment. I'm like, what is all these cameras? Tell me what those cameras are.
So flock cameras, it's a system to track its license plate readers. And what they're doing is we have a great collection at Solari on local control. We also have something called the Approaching Digital Control Grid. And if you go to those two collections, there's a wealth of information. But what they do is they read your license plates. And so they're tracking who's moving what. And that's part of building the surveillance you need for spatial control. So literally, we're coming into a system. Congressman Massey has been trying to kill the kill switch in cars, but we're coming into a system where, if they say you're locked down or you can't travel a certain way, if the flock system identifies that you're in an appropriate place, they can presumably they can turn off your car.
So this,
But, if you look at the Palantir Panopticon, they can also shoot and kill you. Right.
right. So this is what you speak of, the control grid. The flock cameras are definitely a main tool in this, and that so they can see you. If they, for instance, they say you can't travel this much, that certain distance from your house, and then the camera picks you up, they shut down your car, they shut down your currency, right?
Right, they can shut off your money too.
And they can turn you into.
So there are three parts. If you go to the control grid collection, there are three main parts. One is programmable money that can be
Turned on and off.
Well, it's not just turned on and off, but added money to or subtracted or changed. There's all sorts of fine tuning, negative interest rates. Let's decide we want more taxes. We just say, okay, we're taking more taxes, and they just take it out of your money, or they put on negative interest rates. So one is programmable money. One is the digital ID, because I've got to make sure you're Jimmy and Catherine's Catherine. So you need a high quality digital ID and biometrics that are interoperable globally, because this is a global system. And then the third thing is the hardware and software infrastructure, the flock cameras, the Starlink satellites overhead, so satellite GPS, and all the cell towers. So there's a big push by the FCC now to basically ramrod all local controls of how many cell towers. They want to put cell towers every 400, 700 feet. And part of that is, and the big thing, of course, is all this data of surveillance and implementation of control, both spatial control and money, is mammoth amounts of data. So you need all the data centers. And of course, you want to do all of this in a way ultimately that the taxpayers pay for it, where we build our own prison.
So let me, before I let you go, wow, that is heavy. So how do we fight that?
So here's the little secret. There are thousands of ways we can fight it. Because if you look at who's building the control grid and who's financing the control grid, we are. Okay. So we're buying the stocks of those companies. We're shopping with those companies. We're putting our money in those banks. We are using all these digital mechanisms and saying, fine, groovy, I'll get a digital ID. We have the power to stop. And the number one thing we can all do is pray. The number two thing we can all do is use cash, because this only works if they go to an all digital system. And so, anything you can do to get everybody using cash, it absolutely walks back the complete central control they need to make this go into effect. Then, if you come to our website, we have something called Coming Clean, and we also have a financial transaction freedom website. And they're full of thousands of things that you can do. The most important thing you can do is clean this stuff out of your own mind, out of your wallet, out of your bank account, because it's like having a parasite, Jimmy. It's like having a tapeworm. We're feeding the tapeworm. And if you stop supporting the tapeworm in all the different ways that we're all doing it, not only do you make yourself safer and stronger by getting the tapeworm out of your body and out of your mind and out of your life, but by cutting off food to the parasite, you make it easier for the rest of us too.
Okay, so now is there a connection between this Iran war and Iran not having a central bank?
So Iran has a central bank, but there is a connection between this wanting to get everybody into a control grid. Okay. So if you look at what's happening right now, the key to running a reserve currency is the ability to control the sea lanes. And the Straits of Hormuz are shut down. And the message from the United States is we don't control the straits and we can't police the sea lanes. We're helpless to police the sea lanes. So it's a very negative message. Now, part of why this was happening is they want Iran and China, Iran's really a proxy for China, to not do a BRIC system or separate payment systems in a way that threaten the plans to do a global central bank digital currency, whether you do it through the central banks or you do it private like the US is trying to do it. So the people who run that are trying to get everybody in the model. So the war does relate to that. But if you look at what's happening, it was the City of London that shut down the straits by pulling the insurance. And now it's Iran that's working with them. And what that is doing is that is forcing the Europeans out of the US syndicate and having to negotiate directly with Iran and literally saying to the world, the US spends $1 trillion a year on military hardware, but they're incompetent to, to protect the straits. Now, I'm not sure I know whether that's gross incompetence or simply that's part of the plan. But what I will tell you is if you shut down the straits, and Goldman Sachs is saying it's going to be shut down for 21 days, what you are going to do is you're going to make sure that all the materials you need to make the fertilizer in Europe and the United States at any kind of reasonable cost will fail, and the spring planting will fail. That will not be available to farmers. We just ran a clip on the Solari report of a farmer in Iowa was saying fertilizer prices are up 70%. I can't plant. I can't afford to plant. Doesn't work. And the ramifications of closing those straits for 21 days to the global food supply is going to be astonishing. And that happens over the last year. The Trump administration has slashed and destroyed emergency food funding for poor people domestically, but also USAID globally. So you have slashed, I don't know, 10, 20, $30 billion of emergency food provision for poor people. At the same time, you are you've been dramatically targeting the farmers ever since COVID started, but this is really going to slam farmers in Europe and the US throughout the Western world. So we are looking at serious dislocation in the energy markets, in the food markets. And just like the tariffs or COVID completely hiccup the supply chain, this is going to hiccup the supply chain. What does that mean? It means it's much easier for the guys at the top to centralize control. So during COVID, they shut down Main Street and were able to literally shut down in America 35% of the small businesses and consolidate huge market share from Main Street into the publicly traded stocks. That is going to happen again because the guys who've got access to the capital, are going to be, you got private equity out there with unbelievable amounts of money trying to buy up farmland. So, the consolidation of the small farmer, small rancher, small businessman, if this keeps up, is going to be very, very dramatic. And it's dangerous for us because family enterprise and family wealth is the basis of freedom. And if we allow everything to be consolidated into billionaire control, then we're going straight into the control grid.
So,
Now, I think they're going to fail. That's my, I'm an optimist about this, but I want everybody to get off the couch and start praying and using cash and fighting because we can stop this, but we got to get off the couch.
so you're saying just like during COVID when you couldn't go into like I couldn't go into a sporting goods.
I have 2 minutes. I gotta go.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
Sorry, Jimmy.
I appreciate you taking time. I'm sorry we had that technical glitch. So that's how food. So everybody's talking about energy, but you're saying food is also the important thing about this war.
I'm more worried about food than energy, but we got to worry about both. So, in your life, what you've got to do is really think hard about where's your food going to come from, and where's your food going to come from? Where's your energy going to come from? And who are your neighbors? And how can you get together to do something about this? This is going to come down to the local level. In World War II, we went from 0%, or within 2 years, 40% of Americans had victory gardens. It's not a bad idea to do it again.
Oh, okay. I can't wait to see how they'll try to stop that, because you know they will, right? They will definitely try to stop that.
Yeah,
Uh,
but there are only a few of them, and there's plenty of us.
okay.
Get off the couch.
So overall, you are optimistic, not pessimistic, and you think that there's a light at the end of the tunnel of this
I
war?
definitely think there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but I don't underestimate the damage these folks can do. So the faster we all get off the couch, the the shorter the pain will be. So, but we're in for a world of hurt. This is the year of the fire horse in the Chinese zodiac, and the fire horse means dramatic change. And that's at the beginning of the year, I said to the Solaria team, we meet once a week, and I said, our motto for this year is rock and roll. Get ready.
Okay, Catherine Austin Fitts, Solari.com. Everybody check out the amazing website, Solari.com. Appreciate you again. Thank you so much, and then hope to talk again
Thanks,
soon.
Jimmy.
Okay.
Have a wonderful day.
You too. Over to Steph.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break and we'll be right back.
Hey, you may have seen the conversations happening online lately. Censorship is back. It's happening everywhere. Platforms are controlling narratives and pushing the stuff they want us to see. We need to fight back. Rumble is the only company that has stood the test of time and deserves our support. On one side, Rumble is challenging the big tech censorship, but now on the other side, they have introduced something that will give us protection from the big banks shutting us off. Banks can cancel our accounts and freeze our cards. That's why they've launched Rumble Wallet, a wallet that no one can cancel and wallet that supporters can use to instantly tip creators like myself without any middleman taking a cut. With Rumble Wallet, you control your money. Not a bank, not a government, not a tech company, not even Rumble can touch it. It's yours, only yours to protect your future and family. You can buy and save digital assets like Bitcoin, Tether, gold, and now the new USAT, Tether's U.S. regulated stablecoin, in one place. Tether Gold is real gold on the blockchain with ownership of physical gold bars. USAT keeps your money steady against inflation. No banks needed. It's not only a wallet to buy and save, but it will also allow you to support your favorite creators by easily tipping them with a click of a button. There will be no fees when you tip my channel or others, and we actually receive the tip instantly, unlike other platforms where we have to wait for payouts. Support my show and other creators by clicking the tip button on my Rumble channel. It's wallet.rumble.com. Download Rumble Wallet today, open an account, and step away from the big banks for good. Wallet.rumble.com or search Rumble Wallet in the App Store. Hi, everybody. Hey, let me tell you about something they don't actually advertise on cable news. When markets dip, the people who panic are usually the ones glued to the financial TV all day. The folks who've been around the block a few times, they tend to lean in. Look what just happened. Gold and silver ran up to $5,400 to $5,500 range, and then on March 3rd, we saw a sharp pullback. Some traders took profits. That's normal, happens in every bull market. But those with experience didn't panic. They accumulated, because the reasons gold's been climbing haven't magically disappeared. Government debt keeps exploding. Central banks around the world are stocking up on gold, and demand for silver keeps growing. That's one reason I like monetary gold. They've been helping Americans diversify with precious metals for over 26 years. And right now, if you have a qualifying account, they may even cover your IRA fees for the life of the account. So if you want to learn more, check out jimmylovesgold.com or call 800-476-7790. That's jimmylovesgold.com or 800-476-7790. Over to Steph.
Oh, ho, ho. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Friday, and we've already had a great show. All right, Jimmy just interviewed Catherine Austin Fitts. Let me tell I'm such a fan of hers. I'm so glad she was able to be patient with our tech glitches, and bam, Jimmy started at 1:03. What a Friday we've had. And shout out to our friends at Judissidents. Thank you so much. Great stuff that you've been doing lately. And I loved your coverage of the false flag. We just experienced a rehearsal for false flag with the power outage. That was weird. Just went out and then went right back on. It was like it was teasing us. So welcome to Fancy Vagina Friday. Glad you're here. Is your vagina fancy? All right, let's see what I got here. It looks like Trump is divine reckoning for America for a cent to bring the bully empire to its knees. With daily costs of $1 billion, the worst of Iran war is still to come. MSM. You know what? Oh, what was the headline that I just read? Let's see. Trump said, so supposedly according to HuffPo, that's a great source, isn't it? Trump, war will end when I feel it in my bones. Guess it's better than in my, I guess. Yeah, I said it was better. It was better than that. Okay. All right. So feel it when it's. Oh. Gas costs also spill into grocery prices. Yes, since the trucks have to pay more for fuel, which with the logistic companies have to factor into costs of goods. NEMAD. And also I saw an article where they were talking about the drivers, Lyft and Uber drivers, having to deal in California with the costs of gas. How ironic that Israel is why OPEC created the gas shortage of 73, and now this. Kenneth Topping. Hey, you, Kenneth. It's not a surprise Trump has a serious issue with children from Epstein to the primary school girls he bombed in Iran, MSM. The pain like inflation is transitory, and that's Pete Walker. None of you are going to Christian Zionist heaven after Bibi and Ted Cruz tricked God into having the rapture before it's scheduled, so tread lightly. Ask about Catherine Austin Fitts' article on coming clean. Doesn't get to that. You know how we roll here on the show. We usually have the questions already in the queue with Jimmy, so it's hard to go back and forth during interviews. But thank you, Hart. Viva Frey has rated the stream. Did you feel it? I did. Jimmy Dore's power went out because of the Iranian drone strike on California. A real false flag.
Okay.
All right, back to Mr. Jim.
Have anything for Tennessee, right? This is from Tennessee. Look out. Look out. Tennessee Air National Guard deployed to the Middle East as part of the war in Iran. What? Yep. The Tennessee Air National Guard deployed to the Middle East in February as part of President Trump's Operation Epic Fury. A lot of people are calling it Epstein Fury. Governor Bill Lee said at a news conference Tuesday he didn't know how many members or from which bases the state National Guard were sent, but hoped that the conclusion of the war was a positive one. Well, isn't that nice? Wow. Once Trump federalizes the National Guard, Lee has no authority over the troops, and his access to information is limited to what the administration will share with him. No announcement was made when Tennessee National Guard soldiers deployed for the operation. In January, when 20 members were deployed to Kuwait as part of another operation, the state National Guard made an announcement, and Lee visited the troops overseas. A similar news release was sent out on September in 2024 when 700 soldiers were also sent to Kuwait. Asked Tuesday if he felt Iran presented an imminent threat to America before the bombing started, Lee said he didn't have the information to make a determination. But he added, I do know that Iran has chanted. Oh, the chanting.
When's it going to stop? Not them chanting.
The chanting. They have chanted death to America for decades. Oh, God. I can't take the chanting. And they are a clear threat to sovereignty and freedom around the world. How they didn't threaten us ever? They didn't threaten our sovereignty. We're threatening them, that's for sure. Hey, Grok, are National Guard troops being deployed to the Middle East? Yes, says Grok. National Guard troops from multiple U.S. states are being deployed to the Middle East as part of the ongoing U.S. military operation amid the conflict with Iran, known as Operation Epstein Fury. The deployments support regional U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, efforts, including air operations, logistics, security, and basing in locations such as Kuwait, Iraq, and other Middle Eastern sites. Key examples from recent reports: as of early March 2026, the Vermont Air National Guard deployed with F-35 stealth fighters to support operations. Tennessee National Guard troops, including air wings, refueling units, confirmed deployed in the region connected to the Iran mission. Wisconsin Army National Guard, over 400 members, are in Kuwait and Iraq. Louisiana National Guard, approximately 1,000 soldiers deployed overseas, with some within missile range of Iran. Virginia Army and Air National Guard units in the Middle East supporting operations alongside active duty forces. Connecticut National Guard, hundreds of stationed across the Middle East, and New Hampshire National Guard activated for the conflict through though specific numbers and locations are limited. Other states, for example, mentions of Minnesota, New England units broadly contributing and to supporting elements. The Pentagon and Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kane have highlighted the National Guard's integral role in Operation Epstein Fury, noting reserve and guard forces demonstrate value in backing active duty missions. Deployments focus on support roles outside Iran itself. No confirmed ground troops, guard or otherwise, inside Iran. No, not inside Iran yet. With the campaign emphasizing airstrikes. The buildup is part of the largest U.S. military presence in the Middle East since 2003, triggered by escalating tensions over Iran's nuclear program, yank, yank, protests and related strikes, yank, yank. The situation remains fluid, with thousands of Guard members mobilized regionally. Official sources, for example, state governors, Pentagon briefings, National Guard Association, confirm these activations, though exact details on missions are often limited for operational security. There it is. Hegseth says he and Trump reserve the right to send U.S. troops to Iran. And looks like they're going to do it. Hey, Kurt is here. Hi, Kurt. Kurt Metzger.
Do you think that Pete Hegseth, they did get out surgery on him, like from that movie, and he has Donald Rumsfeld inside of him in his brain, and that's why he's got his hair like that?
I think it's most likely. I think that's the best explanation. I haven't heard a better one, if you're asking. Yeah.
I defy anyone to come up with a better explanation.
So, they're there. They're on the ground. They're in the Middle East. We're sending troops. It's all happening. I really, so they say there's no way we can put boots on the ground inside Iran without a U.S. draft. I think if they do a U.S. draft, that will be the end of.
It's done if that happens. Jimmy, there is on TikTok, it's flooded, and this is the Ellison TikTok, recall, and it's flooded with Zoomers making fun of the very idea that they would go to war if drafted. I mean, it's loaded with the draft because they slipped some draft language into the what do you call it, NDAA or
the last National Defense Authorization Act.
That's right, and so they slipped it in a thing of like if you don't want to go, you still have to go kind of language. They put it, and I guess word got out to the Zoomies because they are in force talking about how they're not going and they're going to call in queer to the battle and this and that, and I support that. Please do, Zoomies.
You got decorated Marines in Senate hearings getting their arm broken while screaming, "Hey, no one wants to die for Israel."
Yeah, well, thank you for your service. There's a broken arm.
There's a broken. We got Candace Owens very vehemently telling people don't join the military, and if you're in the military, find a legal way to get out of the military.
I agree wholeheartedly. Don't join the military and find a legal way to get out if you can. Yes, that's a good point.
100%. And
why would you waste your life on this nonsense? Why after Iraq? You know, a lot of people got suckered by that, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, a lot of
They
people
got real heinous injuries and they
well, a
take
lot
their
of
own
well,
lives.
there was 9/11 that suckered a lot of people, and including that Arizona football player. I'm blanking on his
Pat Tillman, that
Pat
was not
Tillman.
friendly fire. He was killed
He
because
was
he was
killed.
complaining too much. Nobody has 3 bullet holes, one in a, like this across their head,
Yeah.
unless that was on purpose assassination. His brother just not a few weeks ago drove his car or something to a post office to make a statement to the U.S. government about it. Did you see that?
No, that did not get
Yeah,
covered.
very telling, isn't it?
I didn't see that coverage. They certainly
barely covered, and they wouldn't say what his statement was. But I bet it was, "I don't appreciate how you killed my brother Pat Tillman." If I had to guess.
Wow. Okay, they're there. This is real. Trump is I think he's trying to become the least popular president in history.
Accomplished.
Okay, he's the first
He's on his way.
non-Jew.
He's lost Alex Jones. He's lost Owen Schroyer. He's lost Dave Smith. He's lost Tucker Carlson. He's lost Candace Owens. He's lost Joe Rogan, Andrew Schultz. I could keep going all day, right?
Keep in mind, these people aren't going, we have to stick with Trump because we hate Democrats, which, if you recall, that's how the Democrats brought Trump into power, by sticking to the moron guns no matter what, because Trump is so bad.
Yes.
You're supposed to turn on the guy you elected when he betrays you. You're not loyal to him. He's loyal to you. That principle is very important.
100% important. 100% important.
Well,
yes.
he won the Israel Award. You saw that, Jimmy. He's the first non-Jew to win an Israel Award.
Who,
something
Trump?
of a Hattie McDaniel, if you will, at the Oscars. They let the goy on stage and everything.
Okay. Wow. I didn't know that about Pat Tillman's brother. Okay.
I couldn't believe it when I heard that. And it wasn't big news. But, I mean, why would he be doing what message would he have for the government besides, "I know what you did to my brother"? I can't think of a single thing. They didn't say it in the paper or in the source.
Okay, if you want to hear my jokes about this, I'll be in San Antonio, Albuquerque, Houston, Dallas, Salt Lake City, and then Las Vegas, Burbank. What? How come is that a new?
What happened?
Oh, so the Comedy Store sold out? Oh, okay.
Nice.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, congratulations.
You
Okay.
sold out the Comedy Store big room. Good for you, man.
No, no, it's the belly room, but it's it's not until mid-April and it's already sold out, so that's great. So let me do this again. Hey, we'll be in San Antonio, Albuquerque, Houston, Dallas, Salt Lake City, Las Vegas, Burbank, California. That's on May 7th. That's a Saturday. Then we'll be in Tulsa and Oklahoma City, Spokane, Tacoma. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets. See you there. Over to Steph.
All right. Vianticus Prime. Everything's a scam. Everything's a lie. Everything's hypocrisy. And so I don't comply. Look at you. You phrase it so you don't comply. But
I have exciting news when I do Danny Jones.
Exciting news. Let's see.
Yeah.
Bring him up.
So I'm doing Danny Jones podcast next week, and you know how I've been wanting to dress like that Mooney that lives here, that Steve Bannon's buddy with the crown of bullets. They're making me a special outfit like that Mooney guy that I'm going to have.
Oh, no kidding.
Korean Jesus crown of bullets. I cannot wait. Danny Jones looked it up.
I love that you like costumes. I do too. Costello said locals just died, and our mod let you know that our internet went out today at Costello, so that might have affected it. Now, Corn Pop, you came in and you're you wanted people to know about Professor Zhang and the conflict that he had a couple years ago, and you phrase it this way: Zhang accused people of racism because his kid was crying due to chlorine getting in his eyes, and he beat the kid so bad people called the cops on him. I read that he slapped his kid. This is years ago, I guess. I'm not sure. I read a little bit about it, about Professor Zhang.
That's the background of him that is there's word that he may have slapped his kid at a swimming pool, and
it became a big kerfuffle, and then
who gives a shit?
Zhang responded to it, and he had put a post up explaining what had happened, And the post is still up without the video. And underneath the post, a lot of people say, just take it down. Don't even say anything more. You're hurting yourself more by even responding to
I'd
this.
leave it up and not even address it and go fuck yourself. Mind your business if I slap my kid at the pool. Mind your business. First of all, they eat your kids here, stupids. They eat your children here. What do you care that he slapped his kid at a swimming pool in China? It's China, you unreal.
I believed he did it here in the U.S. I think that was the issue, and blah 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 blah. But
I wish
what
he'd
I was
slap
telling
some U.S. kids.
I was telling Jimmy about that, and Jimmy goes, "Oh yeah, that's nothing what they did to
It
him
isn't.
in school." So Jimmy went to an all Catholic school for all of his life, and he said they could beat you, they could slap you, they could kick you, they could push you, they could do whatever they wanted. Could be a nun, it could be a priest, it could be just a a regular. I forget what they call
public
it.
school.
You
in
know,
the
a
South,
brother.
where I grew up.
Uh-huh.
My parents signed a permission slip that they could paddle us if we got out of line.
Oh,
You had to opt in, and my parents couldn't wait to tell us that they opted in. They're like, God, we told them they can give you a good old. Anything weird about that? The principal of the school using a paddle with holes in it to erotically spank your children? No, nobody saw a problem with it.
They used to. So
ahead,
I went
Jimmy.
to Catholic school, and they beat the shit out of us every day. And when I was in Catholic high school, they would, just like Kurt said, they had this huge paddle with holes in it so it could hit you harder. And they would give you, so if you got in big trouble, sometimes they would give you the option. They go, do you want a jug or a SWAT? Now, a jug meant that you had to come on Saturday for 3 hours and just sit in a classroom.
Oh, hit me.
And so
kids.
They would,
Beating,
in front
please.
of the whole class, they would say jug or SWAT. And if you said jug, you'd get hit from the friends. They'd be like, "Oh,
you're
you're
a pussy. Take the
you're
the
being a
SWAT.
big
Don't spend
wussy.
a jug."
You're being a big wussy. You better take the SWAT." And so most people took the SWAT. And let me tell you, I was swatted, and I've never felt anything like it in my life.
Were you like, did I join the Navy? This feels like Marshall.
There's like this rush goes to your head, and you get dizzy, and it's unbelievable. It's way worse than a slap in the face. Believe me.
Well, with carving the holes out so you have no windows. Like, I mean, look, that's Catholic school. That's pretty medieval. This is a public school. They were doing this. This is a public school, not a priest in sight. But people were like, I don't like that they're getting rid of the school beatings. You know, in the 50s, a grown landowning man could just spank his kids, his wife, his secretary. Anyone who got out of line, you just spank them back in the 50s for some reason. Good spanking. That's, you just apply it, Mad Men style.
You know, when I was in elementary school, I went to a public school, and my teacher, Mrs. Straley, made it a rule that if you watched a fight on the playground, it was just as bad as you being in the fight.
No, it's not.
Which would require a SWAT. And so I remember I was sitting in the classroom and a fight had happened during recess. And of course I watched it, and hands were going up. Hands were going up to let Mrs. Straley know who watched the fight.
What grade is this again?
This is 4th grade public school.
Oh, yeah.
So I watched the fight, and she had a paddle, and the paddle had holes in the paddle. And yep, I got a SWAT in front of the class.
Are we all in the Navy? Boy, I remember Bannon was like going to bring back Catholic education. No, we don't. No, we don't. Bannon, no, we don't. You think that's created a lot of problems? The weird naval floggings that they were giving out for many years.
Hey, you know what? Somebody said this recently, that Jehovah's Witnesses can't vote.
That's right. We're not, well, no part of the world you don't believe in the governments. God says you have to respect their law. So let's say there's a war. You can't go to war. So you would go to jail. You wouldn't flee to Canada. You go, okay, I'll take my punishment and go to jail for not going to the war. That's what you'd be required to do.
Okay.
All right. Back to Jimmy.
So remember when Netanyahu said this about the Israeli army?
I can tell you categorically, there is no army in the.
By the way, whenever someone uses the word categorically in an argument, That's code for this is bull.
Yeah, what does that mean categorically?
What I can tell you
In certain
categorically.
circumstances,
You
it's the
mean
most moral.
in a category, I can tell you if it's in a.
No.
I never understand. I don't understand what that means. I don't understand when people say it. But always when someone says I deny categorically, I know something happened because I've never denied anything categorically. Have you ever categorically?
I wouldn't even think of to do that. I would go.
No.
I didn't do nothing.
Yeah.
I would say.
Okay, here we go.
I can tell you categorically, there is no army in the world that acts in a more moral fashion than the army of Israel.
Whoa.
I can tell you categorically.
Whoa. Just so, boy. So if I was in another army and I heard him make that comparison, I would be really, really pissed off that they're more moral. It's really
Me
somehow,
too. I go, what are we doing? More grapes of prisoners than Israel somehow?
Somehow. Just remember that he is from a black hole universe where everything is in reverse, Kurt. Good is bad, bad is good, up is down. Demon worshiping is an infiltration of a legitimate religion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Israel drops charges against soldiers in Palestinian detainee abuse case. What do you think that detainee abuse was about? That detainee abuse was about them graping on camera someone, basically sticking a knife in them in their anus.
A nice Gaddafi, and I posted
They
the clip
gave
of them
him a Muammar
arguing
Gaddafi. That's exactly what this is.
on Twitter. I tweeted a clip of them arguing about it.
I got it.
Like,
it's in here.
Yeah.
I'm going to show it. So let me just go to that right away. Let me go to them arguing about it because that's a good clip. So, Kurt,
I got it off Navarro Media, but I isolated it because I wanted people just to see that. Or Double Down. Double Down. I got it off.
So Kurt Metzger tweeted this out. Can anyone guess what disgusting country full of racist psychopaths is having this debate? Hint, it's not Qatar. So you could see what it says, what they're debating. They're debating if it's okay for their soldiers to grape people in their anus. And they were using, some people say knives, some people say pointy objects.
What are they, NYPD?
And so here they are, they're literally having this argument. Let's watch. So they're saying this is insanity. Someone in the prosecutor's office thinks it's possible to arrest soldiers for things they do to Nukba. So again, this is the Israeli mentality that first of all, Palestinians are not human beings. They're animals, right? And everybody is Amalek, right? So those
very South African of them with apartheid.
Say it
putting
again.
The condoms on. South Africa was very, very well popularized. In South Africa, they would have condoms on metal rods that they were putting into dissidents, and it was widely condemned. And that was apartheid Africa. But you know how we're not supposed to say this is apartheid, except they're doing the same stuff except worse.
Right. Okay. So here we go. And he says, so let's start it again. He says, this is insanity. Someone in the prosecutor's office thinks it's possible to arrest soldiers for things they do to Hamas. So he's saying we can do whatever we want to them. And they have been. And so,
and that'll stop terrorism, by the way. That will make the population not keep fighting you.
Yeah.
So it's a genius move on every level, morally, strategically. Really, they're the best. They're the most moral.
So this guy's, first of all, you can tell, how can you spot the Israeli even with the sound off? The finger pointing. It's like a martial art for them, stemming from the ancient practice of diverting blame.
Yeah, the Krav Maga for you.
So look at him point. So here we go. There is insanity. Someone thinks it's possible to arrest soldiers for things they do to Palestinians. We can't continue as usual to insert a. So this guy then puts back to insert a stick in a person's rectum. Is that legitimate? They're having this as a debate.
That's now. Kudos to whoever the lone Israeli against this.
Yeah,
kudos to you bringing that up, but that is the minority. I would get the hell out of that country if I were you, because you're surrounded by crazy people.
This is a legit debate they're having right out in public.
How would it be legitimate on any level in any way at all unless you think you're the supreme race? Kind of like that one thing that you guys keep bringing up that did happen. I know it did, because you couldn't be this vicious unless that had happened.
to insert a stick in a person's rectum. Is that legitimate? Shut up, he says. Yes, if it's Palestinians or the Nukba, Hamas, right? Everything is legitimate to do. Everything. So
No rules for them. For the most moral.
So what he's admitting is that we are animals. There is no low level of human behavior that we won't sink to, because we don't see these other people as people. We don't see them as human.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that whole thing is, if you look into the abyss long enough, the abyss looks back into you.
It makes you its puppet.
So now they're the monsters. So, as you know, that you've heard that saying, don't when fighting monsters, make sure you don't become a monster. Well, now they've become the monster. Now they're the monster.
It couldn't be more obvious, but I would say an even bigger monster is the nitwits here who want to pretend that this is okay. I would say I respect you less than this anally graping monster, because who the hell would look at this and go, it's not a big deal, I'm still on their side? No, you should turn on them for this.
You just like you should turn on Trump over the Iran war and for instituting hate speech laws. And
or Abu Ghraib.
And for
remember Abu Ghraib?
Yeah, remember Abu Ghraib. Remember, and for instituting DEI, you're supposed to flip on Trump over that stuff. You're supposed to flip on Israel over this if you're still loyal to them. Okay, because I'll show you what. Guess who wins this argument, by the way? Spoiler alert, not the good guys. Here we go. He says, shut up. He tells the guy, shut up. When the guy asks, how is it legitimate to anally grape someone? He says, shut up. Yes, it is. Okay. So that's just a little clip of them arguing over the legitimacy of doing this thing that they now. Okay, so here it is. They've dropped the charges on these guys.
That's right. The woman who exposed this, don't forget, she was only exposing this small piece of it because she was trying to cover it up in a larger sense. She wanted to throw a few people out to be caught for this horrible crime that is rampant. And they turned on her when she was doing her best to lessen how evil it is.
Israel's dropped all the charges against 5 soldiers accused of abusing a Palestinian detainee at a military detention facility. Israeli media outlets have reported closing a case that became one of the most divisive in the country's recent history. The military announced the decision this week, more than a year after footage of the assault of SD Seed Teeman, a desert facility Palestinian detained during holding. Hang on, this is written poorly. More than a year after footage of the assault at Seed Teeman, that's a desert facility holding Palestinians detained during Israel's genocidal war against Palestinians in Gaza, was broadcast by Israeli television, triggering international outrage. Really?
I don't remember seeing the outrage here. I remember I felt outrage, but I hardly saw it anywhere.
So here, this is the video of it. I don't really want to show it. So there they.
I don't want to see it.
And I don't want to see it. So they do it. They do it to him.
Up to his lung, dude. These people suck. I mean, what? Look at this. Look at this.
The incident, which occurred on July 5th, 24, resulted in the detainee being admitted to hospital. A doctor at the facility told the newspaper that he was so shocked by the man's condition that he initially assumed it was the work of a rival armed group. The military's own indictment described soldiers stabbing the detainee with a sharp object near his rectum, causing cracked ribs and puncturing his lung and an internal tear.
You mean through his rectum?
Yes.
There's no way he got up to the lungs,
right?
If it didn't go straight through,
right? The U.S. Department of State called the allegations horrific at the time and demanded a swift and full investigation.
By Israel?
There ought to be yes. There ought to be zero tolerance of any of this. So Major General Yerushalmi, the military's top lawyer who had filed the indictment and authorized the footage to be leaked to Channel 12, resigned last year and was subsequently arrested on charges including fraud, breach of trust. So the military, the Israeli military's top lawyer who decided to do what you're supposed to do and filed charges against these people for doing what they did to the Palestinian detainees, he was then arrested and charged. That's how Israelis roll. That's how they roll, just so you know. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, meanwhile, described the leak of the video, not the incident, not the abuse of the detainee. He described the leak of the video of the abuse as perhaps the worst public relations attack Israel has ever faced.
They're the victim of this.
So now they're a victim. Do you see? This is amazing. This is how it always goes.
Our own special forces did that after Abu Ghraib, and I watch them to this day complain, like your Jocko Willink type people. They go, oh, because the Abu Ghraib thing leaked, it emboldened our enemies. Did it? The fact that you're a rapist emboldens the enemy. You don't say.
So a member of the Israeli parliament said that the government wants to cover this up, and that's why they're dealing with the prosecutors and not the crime itself. This is how the judiciary works. These are your so-called checks and balances. Look at them. They're criminals. Of course they're criminals. Yes. Israeli rights group B'Tselem has described the country's detention system as a network of torture camps. According to the Public Committee Against Torture in Israel, a human rights organization, despite hundreds of reported alleged abuse cases since October 23, Israeli authorities have brought indictments on only 2 incidents with no prison service personnel charged. A report by Israeli rights group Yesh Din found that 93.6% of investigations into ideologically motivated offenses by Israelis against Palestinians in the occupied West Bank since 2005 ended without indictment. A record it describes not as oversight, but as deliberate policy. So over 9 out of 10 of the investigations into this kind of stuff ends without any charges.
Of course, just like American military grape investigations end with no charges.
Yes.
It is rampant in the American military. Another reason never to join.
A sweeping UN Human Rights Office report published in January found that more than 1,500 Palestinians killed between 2017 and 2025. Israeli authorities a sweeping UN Human Rights Office report published in January found that of more than 1,500 Palestinians killed between 2017 and September 2025, Israeli authorities opened 112 investigations and secured just 1 conviction.
Wait, are these people that are imprisoned and there's 1,500 killed?
Yeah.
Wow. Moral. What a moral army, categorically speaking.
Israel maintains that its forces act within the Israeli military and international law and that it investigates alleged abuses of
Does it maintain that, Jimmy? That's moral.
So that's a video of them doing it to that guy. And the redheaded libertarian says, I'm going to give you the medical findings according to the testimony of the Israeli doctors who treated this man. This is going to be very difficult to read. I encourage you to scroll ahead if you are a weak stomach. Here it is. The medical findings: a ruptured bowel or a tear in the lower bowel rectum, severe anal rectal injuries, a cut, a tear, several centimeters inside the rectum consistent with insertion of an object, a punctured lung, broken ribs, blunt trauma to the abdomen and chest. He required emergency surgery. A large, round, and pointed object was inserted into his rectum, causing the bowel tear. There was blood in his underwear. You can see it soaking through as the animals force him to walk hunched over immediately following their gruesome assault. I don't want to show you that. You can. It's in that video. I don't want to show it.
Dude, I have people defending it on Twitter. Let me just read you psychobabble, this piece of shit. I don't need to defend Israel. I applaud everything they do against them. He's referring to this.
So that's not a real. That can't be a real person, Kurt.
Oh no, it's someone who works for Israel.
Who works for Israel, obviously.
Yeah. They're pieces of shit there.
So the testimonies of serious abuse were corroborated, and the video was aired on Israeli Channel 12 News. These soldiers had their charges dropped today. Now, I know I'm going to lose followers because of anti-Semitism, and I know it will be whataboutisms in the comments. And I don't really give an F. I'm consistent. We all know what we're seeing here. Don't play dumb. Don't tell me he did it to himself. No, F that and F you. I consistently denounce all assaults. Yes, from Islamics. Yes, from Americans. Yes, from Israelis. Yes, from everyone on the Epstein list. Our world is sick and it's possessed by something not of God. Glenn Greenwald says mainstream Israeli voices explicitly said that Israelis have the right to grape Palestinians and use it as a weapon of war. The IDF gang rapists caught on tape were treated as heroes. Knesset members protested their arrest.
Yeah.
This is the true face of Israel, financed by Americans.
That's how they got the country of Israel in the first place. Remember them bragging about all the grapes they did to cause the
During
Nakba?
The Nakba.
That's what that country is, and that's what Israelis are.
Well, Israel is
Fuck
founded
you, Israel.
it's founded on terrorism, genocide, ethnic cleansing, and
mafia shit. And
Yeah.
also that kind of mafia shit. They even cheated that one mobster that was from, the famous one, Meyer Lansky.
Yeah.
Israel even cheated Meyer Lansky out of his money after he helped. What a scumbag country.
But Benjamin Netanyahu says the IDF soldiers involved in the now dropped detention camp grape case are heroic warriors. The incident was partially caught on video, which included soldiers using shields to prevent others from seeing what was happening. There it is. Benjamin Netanyahu says, the blood libel known as the Seed Teeman affair against the warriors of Force 100, which has damaged Israel's reputation in the world in an unprecedented manner, has reached its end. It is unacceptable that it took so much time to close the case that was handled in a criminal manner against IDF warriors who confront the worst of our enemies. The state of Israel must pursue its enemies, not its heroic war. So he's calling the people who abuse detainees and prisoners, he's calling them heroic. It's the opposite of heroic. It's sadistic and it's cowardly.
Well, the torturers, they're heroic torturers. Yeah. And we should keep giving these people our money. They deserve it.
So just look at this. This is from CBS News. This is from July 30th of 2024. Israeli lawmaker defends alleged grape of Hamas prisoners as far-right protesters rage over the IDF troops' detention. So they came and protested them arresting the people who did this. And so was a member of the Knesset. Here's Mir Shitrit, who graped a Palestinian detainee on camera. So this guy graped a Palestinian detainee on camera. He's being trotted out as a hero.
Wow, well, handsome fella, isn't he? Wait, which one is the guy?
On Israeli national TV.
Which one of these inbred yokels is the grapist hero? I'd like to know.
I'm going to guess it's this guy.
The guy puffing his chest
out?
Guy
puffing his chest up.
Who's the guy with like the slack jaw that looks like he should play a banjo in a movie about
I don't know,
grape?
buddy. Israeli reservists staged riots in his defense, and the lawyer who tried to prosecute him is now under house arrest. The sickest society. I mean, you look at the guys and you can see why someone might not volunteer to have sex with them, but they have turned it into an entire culture based on ugly people trying to have sex. So,
I mean, they got some honeypots. How about Kash Patel's beard? She's not attractive? Come on.
So, Rem Thacker says, my gosh, the Israeli defense minister also openly says here that the role of the Israeli military's legal system is to protect and safeguard soldiers, not hold them accountable, for instance, when they grape someone on camera. That's what he's saying.
I got friends that defend Israel to this day still that I'm in an ongoing argument with. And I go, are you stupid? Are you stupid? You think this is okay? Somebody I know who is a Christian backs Israel still.
I hope they don't protect
Christian.
I hope they don't protect their soldiers the same way they protect their citizens going to a music festival.
They do. They sacrifice them. Half the hostages, first of all, most of the hostages were POWs, not hostages. The hostages were being killed by the IDF.
By the IDF.
Covered it for 3 years.
That's right.
The other hostages, they kill them too. You're a fool if you go to Israel as a Jew and fight for Israel. They will sacrifice you in a heartbeat. Just like you're a fool if you serve in the if you volunteer now to go fight, you're an idiot.
So here is the UN Special Rapporteur on Palestine. She tweeted this out. They graped a man. They gang graped him. They graped him so brutally that he had to be hospitalized. Doctors documented the injuries. The video of the assault was leaked. Now the grapists are free. This is not just unlawful and immoral. It's sick. Hashtag this is Israel.
Hey, maybe Iran should do a regime change in Israel. I'm rooting for it. Iran, it's time for a regime change in Israel. Israelis need to be free of this. Won't you help them?
Won't
Iran?
you help them?
Help them with your paper airplane drones that go right through the Iron Dome, please. Good work hitting Gavir.
Wow. So if you want to hear my jokes about this, come see me in San Antonio, Albuquerque, Houston, Dallas, Salt Lake City, Las Vegas. I'll be in Burbank May 7th. And then Tulsa, Oklahoma City, and then Spokane, Tacoma. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for those tickets. Over to Steph.
All right, Jimmy, it's ready to go to Rumble. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you at Rumble in a minute.